Being a builder gives you a strange kind of authority. You spend your days turning dirt and steel into someone else's dream, watching bare frameworks of concrete and rebar slowly transform into places where lives unfold. Places where people laugh, lie, cheat, love. Over the past decade, I've helped raise half of North Dallas from the ground up. But now, with my newest high-rise residential project finally breaking ground, a luxury complex backed by one of the highest-profile clients we'd ever secured, I was living out of airports, flying city to city like a politician chasing swing states. 3 weeks before the official launch, I got an invitation to a private party. The host? Richard Carmichael. He was the lead investor in the project, and the kind of man you didn't say no to. Polished, smug, early 40s. The type of executive who'd never lifted a single cinder block but took pride in claiming the sweat of others as his own. Still, politics are part of the job. When someone like Carmichael sends for you, you clear your calendar. I flew in a day early. Told Elise I'd be back Sunday night. She barely glanced up from her laptop. Said she'd spend the weekend relaxing. I didn't think twice. The estate was just outside Austin, modern, expensive, all glass and stone, with valet service and soft jazz pouring from somewhere invisible. I pulled into the curved drive, the late afternoon sun bouncing off my windshield, when something made me pause. 50 feet ahead, a black SUV pulled up to the main entrance. The back door opened. Elise stepped out. I recognized her not by her face, but by her movements, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear, the slight tilt of her head. Then he followed. Carmichael, the same man who had been singing praises about my work for 6 months. The same man I was scheduled to dine with in 20 minutes. He stepped out casually, walked around the SUV, and wrapped his arms around her waist like it was second nature, like he'd done it 100 times before. She leaned back into him with a laugh, then kissed his neck. My breath caught somewhere between disbelief and fury. My hands froze on the wheel. Neither of them saw me. They walked through the front doors like they belonged to each other. I didn't follow them in. Not right away. I parked out of view and sat there 5 minutes, then 10, staring at the entryway, imagining what was happening inside. Her laugh in his ear, his hand on her back. Maybe more, maybe less. It didn't matter. The betrayal wasn't about the physical act. It was in the casualness of it, the comfort. She wasn't hiding. She didn't even look conflicted. She looked happy. 20 minutes later, I walked in like nothing had happened. Like I'd just landed, just in time for cocktails. Nobody paid me much attention. Carmichael was already playing host, making his rounds with a drink in hand. Elise at his side like a trophy he thought he'd earned. She didn't see me at first. She was too busy laughing at something he said, brushing imaginary lint off his shoulder, being the woman she used to be with me. When her eyes finally found mine, everything in her face changed. Not guilt, panic, a sharp, silent recognition that I knew. But I didn't march across the room. I didn't shout. I didn't punch him in the mouth or drag her out by the wrist. I walked to the bar, ordered a drink I had no intention of touching, and waited. Eventually, the music dimmed, and Carmichael tapped the microphone. He gave a speech, full of the usual puffed-up phrases, about vision, partnership, the future. Elise stood beside him, hands clasped, smiling like the perfect partner. When he wrapped up, I stepped forward. He noticed me then, confused, maybe a little surprised, but he handed over the mic anyway. Probably expected a few kind words about the project. Instead, I turned to the crowd, cleared my throat, and said, I want to thank Mr. Carmichael for this party, and for showing me exactly who he is. A hush fell over the room. I thought this man was investing in buildings. Turns out he's been investing in my wife. There was a sharp ripple of shock. People shifted. A few gasps broke out like leaves rustling in sudden wind. Elisa's face drained of all color. I didn't look at her again. I kept my eyes locked on Carmichael. I came here tonight to celebrate partnership, I said. But it looks like that deal's already been finalized, just not on paper. I dropped the mic on the table, nodded once, and walked out. I didn't go back to the hotel. Didn't check my phone. I got in the car and drove. Headlights carving through empty roads, no destination in mind. Just asphalt and silence and the sound of betrayal echoing in my chest. By the time the sun came up, I was somewhere outside Waco, not sure what came next. But I knew one thing. I wasn't going back. I pulled into a truck stop somewhere along the endless stretch of highway, bought a coffee I didn't drink, and stared at my reflection in the cracked mirror of a dimly lit bathroom. That's when it hit me. Not in a dramatic wave, but in the quiet, undeniable way that truth settles into your bones. While I had been shaping skylines out of steel and concrete, she had been crafting something else entirely. Something built not with intention or integrity, but with deceit. All those missed dinners, late-night meetings, the calls she said were about clients or scheduling conflicts, they weren't for work. They were for him. Or maybe others. It didn't matter anymore. While I was drawing up plans for towers that would outlast us both, she was quietly dismantling the foundation of the life we'd built at home. When I got back to Dallas, I didn't go home. I checked into a short-term rental under a name that wasn't mine and started to move with a different kind of purpose. Not fueled by rage, but by precision. This wasn't about revenge. It was about extraction. Clean. Quiet. Final. I canceled my return to the Carmichael project. Sent a sterile, one-line message to my team stepping back indefinitely, and disappeared from my usual orbit. I wanted to make sure Carmichael didn't realize how much power I held, until he felt its absence. Elise called 17 times. I answered none. By Monday morning, the city buzzed like a disturbed hive. Carmichael's name was slipping through emails, phone calls, whispers at lunch counters and in high-rise boardrooms. Not the way he liked to be talked about. The party, the speech, the walk-off. It had become a story. One of those tales that starts as gossip and turns into something harder to ignore. But I said nothing. I watched the ripple from a distance. Elise sent a text. Short, cold, we need to talk. She never got the chance. I had already spoken to our attorney. I didn't want questions or explanations or teary apologies. I wanted distance. Legal, emotional, spiritual. Fast, clean, irreversible. I wasn't looking for closure. I was done. 2 days later, she showed up at the house, probably expecting a confrontation, maybe hoping for a scene. Instead, she found a vacuum. My closet was empty. My name scrubbed from our joint accounts. Every payment she depended on was canceled or rerouted. She didn't walk into a fight. She walked into absence. And that was all I was willing to give her. No theatrics. No last words. Just a mirror and the silence she'd earned. As for Carmichael, the fall came quicker than I could have imagined. Within a week of the party, my entire team formally withdrew from the project. To outsiders, that might seem like a minor inconvenience. In this business, it's a tremor before the earthquake. When your lead contractor walks, everyone gets nervous. Subcontractors hesitate. Investors call emergency meetings. Deadlines shift. Budgets unravel. Carmichael tried to contain it. He called my project manager personally, trying to spin a story that I was emotional, just needed time to cool off. But there was no cooling off. There was only collapse. 3 subcontractors followed my lead. The architecture firm stalled. The bank that had underwritten the initial funding began reevaluating risk. It was beautiful in its own quiet way, like watching a building fall, not from a bomb or a blaze, but from the inside, one unseen support cracking at a time. I didn't leak anything to the press. Didn't make a single public statement. I didn't need to. The truth had a way of slipping through the seams. Whispers in elevators, in after-hours bars, in boardroom corners. And people? They love watching a man in a tailored suit lose everything, especially when he stepped on enough necks to get where he is. Carmichael lost the project. Then the next. Rumors spread. Whispers of unethical conduct. Nothing concrete, but enough to stain. He tried to pivot, to bring in new partners, but his name no longer held currency. No one wants to shake hands with a man who mixes business with someone else's wife. Elise tried again 2 weeks after the party. A block call, a carefully worded email. One of her friends even accidentally ran into me at a coffee shop. I ignored it all. Eventually, her lawyer reached out. She didn't contest the divorce. Maybe she thought she was taking the high road. Maybe she hoped for dignity in defeat. But that road was already gone. Her circle knew. Word travels fast in the world she lived in, image-conscious, manicured, polite to your face, and vicious behind your back. Her job in hospitality took the first hit. Clients stopped calling. 2 major accounts vanished in a month. I